All right, y'all. It's 12:32. We're gonna go ahead and do this. Hey, really thankful that you're here. Thank you for taking time out of your day and joining us on really this extremely special webinar. There's no doubt we are living in unique times worldwide. One of the unique parts, I think, of the COVID-19 issue that we're all dealing with is it is a global it's a global pandemic, and it's something that we're all dealing with together. Truth be told, Help One Now is used to dealing with emergencies. This is kind of what we do and who we are on many levels, but obviously this is the first time where there's there's really a global emergency happening all at one time. So we are definitely in uncharted territory, but we are thankful to have all of you walking with us through all of these uncertain times. So a little setup for today. I'm going to just talk a little bit in the beginning, and then Lamar is going to take over and kind of share the international response and what we're doing around the world with the people we partner with, the most amazing humans ever, who are also dealing with COVID-19 as well. And then we're going to close with some really tangible action steps, and then we're going to take some Q&A. So we're going to try and spend roughly around 20 minutes before we get to the Q&A time. And if you have any questions, the Help One Now team is working from home. Yes, we are doing the social distancing aspect as well, but we would love to jump on the phone and answer any questions that you may have, or any ideas or insights as well. We're in this together, and we will fight through this together, and we're going to come out of the other side better because we're going to do it together. And so thank you for being here and being a part of this. So real quick, I think most of you know Help One Now was started in 2008, and it was really probably the worst time ever to start a nonprofit. 2008 was just the beginning of kind of the global economic meltdown that we all experienced. And I remember in those moments just hearing from so many people, like, do not start a nonprofit. And we were really rooted and birthed in kind of crazy times. And we found a way, because of many of you, we found a way to survive and actually to make those moments happen in the very beginning days when we just wondered if we would be around. And now, 10 years as a formal nonprofit later, we're here. We have this global network of amazing leaders that we partner with, and we're so thankful for them. And but we started in chaos in 2008 on many levels. Our first country we were serving was John Orpa and the team at Mushawawana in Zimbabwe. And if you know anything about Zimbabwe at the time, it was a country in full-scale crisis, probably formerly what they would call a least developed country, which means it was at the bottom of the list of kind of the developing nation side of things. And so we really learned how to do this with John Orpa in the middle of the 2008 to 2010 Zimbabwe crisis. And just when things started getting a little better in Zim, the earthquake in Haiti happened. And we spent 3 years doing intense relief and development work post-earthquake in Haiti. And so one thing I will tell you is that the Help One Now team, we understand crisis. Our leaders on the ground understand crisis. And so many of you that are supporting us from the beginning days to now, you've supported the work of Help One Now and our leaders through crisis moments. And so we are, COVID-19 is not something that scares us. This is not something that's causing us to be riddled with anxiety. It's a scenario that's taking place around the world, and we're trying to figure out how to best respond to it. And we understand there are rapid changes taking place every single day around the world. And so just to be really clear, one of the things I'm very grateful for is really what I call the circle of empowerment. And it's, and you know this, we have these brilliant leaders around the world, and it's so cool that they don't have to face the crisis in their community alone, that they know they have all of you here, all of us on this video who are going to walk with them and support them. Also, they want to support us. We're hearing from them all the time. How are you doing? How's the community? How's the Help One Now family doing? So the leaders around the world are not only concerned about their own communities, but they're also concerned about us and our communities here stateside. So our leaders are kind of Lamar would get into it, but we know that they're the ones running this whole thing and making it all happen every single day. I'm also very excited about the Help One Now board and team. No doubt it's been a unique 10 days in the Help One Now ecosystem as we try to evaluate, maybe for the first time, kind of the crisis around the globe, but also the potential crisis stateside that we're all dealing with as an organization, but also as individuals. Every single board member and staff member is being affected by the coronavirus issue in so many different ways, whether it's we've had folks lose jobs already, spouses not working, and obviously us just trying to evaluate. But rest assured, one of the things I was most proud about with the Help One Now team is many of them privately came to me and said, hey, listen, we don't know how bad this is going to get, but if we have to take a pay cut, we're willing to do that. And that was just the initial sign that our team is in it for the long haul. And I think all of you know that as we deal with the crisis, as we face whatever we face, you have a team of people that aren't doing this for a job, but they feel a deep sense of calling and commitment to the work. And so that's already a conversation that people came to me like, hey, wait, we're not there yet. Everything's going to be okay. But that's the kind of team you have at Help One Now. And of course, our board is just really amazing. And they've led so well the last year. And many of them are going through their own scenarios right now in their own jobs and their own families. And they're dealing with literally crisis in the companies that they work with. But of course, they are helping us navigate and lead through this well. And then of course it's you, the most amazing donors, the most amazing advocates, the most amazing table of people who have stepped up. You've pulled up a chair, you sat down, you said, we're in this together and we're going to find a way to make it happen together. And so year after year, the circle of empowerment is what's breaking the cycle of poverty all throughout the world in the communities that we serve in. And it's going to be the same way that we get through this together. Our leaders, the Help One Now board staff, and our amazing advocate donor community, really the Help One Now family. And so just a quick reminder, we are very focused on the mission of Help One Now. No matter what happens, we will stay absolutely focused on empowering high capacity local leaders to see families empowered in their communities to break the cycle of extreme poverty. So we will continue to partner with leaders, empower families, and break the cycle of extreme poverty. No matter what decision we make, whatever happens, each and every day, each and every week, it's changing so quickly. We will stay focused on those three aspects. And we believe we will make tremendous progress in the midst of the crisis. We have absolute confidence in our leaders and their leadership teams that we will absolutely make progress in the middle of the chaos. Now, empowering families are going to look a little different, and Lamar is going to get into that in just a second, but we all know we may have to make some key changes to our programs short term so we can make sure we stay focused on the long-term program of empowering families. The goal is to empower 100,000 families in the next 10 years, and we know we're going to find a way to do that. In the meantime, we're going to do whatever it takes just to bring security short term to the communities that's taking place. And so we are thankful for you all. We are thankful to be in a moment where we know God will lead us through this, and we have our leaders, our Help One Now team and board, and our donors and advocates and Help One Now family walking with us. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to let Lamar share a little bit about how we're responding to the COVID-19 issue in our communities. Lamar has been our international operations director, I think for about 7 years now, but he's been on the Help One Now team for 8 or 9 years. And he's literally has seen kind of the Help One Now ecosystem come from a startup to kind of what it is today. And it's because of his leadership that we've been able to make tremendous progress around the world. So Lamar, welcome, and tell us what we're going to do to make all this happen. No pressure.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, Chris. What I want to do is kind of walk through what we know is happening on the ground, what we're currently doing, some of the realities of the vulnerability of the developing world, and then what we need our response to be. So first off, we have been, a few weeks now, been in constant communication with each and every one of our leaders in each and every community. And so currently the virus is present in 6 out of our 8 countries. In all of the countries in which we partner, schools have closed. Many businesses are closing, even closing in some of the countries, and they've implemented strict curfews and distancing measures, much more so than we have even here in the States. And in general, across the board, what we're hearing is that supplies are short and prices are high and continuing to. So what Help One Now is doing right now to ensure that we can, continue to care for the people who we're most committed to, we're kind of putting our current commitments. So when you think about that, it's restorative care, which that's the 24/7 care for the orphaned and rescued in our communities. So that is not going to stop. We're committed to that. The educational support and feeding programs, that's going to continue. It probably is going to pivot a bit. As I said earlier, all the schools are closed. However, a big part of our educational support is teacher salaries, and we're going to continue that. The feeding programs, each individual leader is assessing how they can still feed the kids in their community, because so many of the kids who go to our schools, that could sometimes be the only meal they get each day. So they're doing everything they can right now to figure that out. And so we're committed to continuing that. Of course, our on-the-ground staffing. Help One Now is a very small team stateside. We're a very large team internationally. And so we're committed to continuing to fund the salaries of program managers, support staff for leaders, teachers, caregivers, all who make Help One Now what it is on the ground. We want our leaders to be able to continue that work. And then, of course, current families in our family and business launch program. We're not going to pull the rug out from under anybody, but what we are well aware of is that when some of the families who, in fact, I was in Haiti and DR just over a week ago and met all these incredible families who had just launched businesses. And of course, we know they're going to be very vulnerable in this time because they have a brand new business, and now the economy is going to really take a hit. So we're well aware that we may need to even focus throughout re-empowering some families who were early on in the process. Hopefully the families who have had some time to really build that can actually sustain this time. So those are the things we're going to concentrate on. And we've already told all of our leaders, hey, let's not bring anyone new into the program for now. Let's kind of like hold pace with what we have. So I want to go over a little bit of the realities of the developing world when faced with a crisis like this. Obviously, this is an unprecedented crisis that we're having, not just the virus itself, but the global reaction to it. But in the developing world, obviously, social distancing is difficult. Water is often in short supply, so hygiene, hand washing, sanitation can also be difficult. We are consistently communicating to our leaders the basic CDC guidelines for how people need to care for themselves in this time, and they are then in turn communicating that to their communities. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Even one small example is, it was communicated through the US that a malaria medication could help this disease, even though it hasn't been tested. And then they started using it in Nigeria, and people are actually dying from over medicating themselves. So we're trying to protect our leaders from misinformation like that and just really follow those simple CDC guidelines. In the developing world, many children are cared for by their grandparents or by other elderly widows in the community. So we know that's a big, dangerous thing. If we know this disease tends to be even more dangerous for the elderly. So we want to do everything we can to take care of those people and keep them safe and healthy in this time. Testing will be hard to come by pretty much everywhere. That seems to be the case. And we know that medical care will be insufficient in the developing world. And as dangerous as this virus is, it could be that the economic fallout from this is even more dangerous. So when we think about closed borders, falling economies, those will quickly lead to supply shortages and then drastic price increases. So Haiti, for example, on Thursday closed their borders, and so much of that country is dependent on imported food from the Dominican Republic. So that has stopped, and we've already seen prices raise. So what we could do for $1 last week is going to cost us $2 this week and could cost us $3 next week. We're dealing with a lot of unknowns, but we do know without a doubt there will be supply shortages and increased prices. What we would like our response to be, we want to help our leaders help as many of the most vulnerable families in their communities as we can. And when we think about how do you help in this time, it's really simple actually, but it's awareness of the virus and its symptoms. It's awareness of sanitation, hygiene, and distancing, the things that we're being told will help, flatten the curve. And then supplying them with basic hygiene supplies and basic food support. So our goal in that is to help our leaders help the most vulnerable families and keep them together in this time. Because what we don't want to do is, if we're not able to respond in our communities, what we really could be looking at is stepping back in time, back to the beginning of Help One Now, when really we were facing an orphan crisis in these communities. We made so much progress over time, and we've really moved that relief type care to more development work and helping families thrive, helping families stay together. And if we can't step in right now and help these vulnerable survive this crisis, then we may be looking at another orphan crisis in our communities in the months and even years to come. So that's really our goal in this, is to kind of shore up stateside, shore up internationally, but then also, we want to be able to respond and help. We'll talk a bit more about what that really looks like, but I'll hand it back over to you, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, Lamar. And I know Lamar was breaking up off and on, but just wanted to be really clear about this. Like the reason we're going to do an emergency relief fund so we can respond to the crisis in these communities. And I'll get to this in a second, how this is going to work. But what we're trying to do is avoid another massive global orphan crisis in the communities that we serve. And we spent the last 7 years being so intensely focused on development work. So moms and dads wouldn't have to give their kid up to an orphanage. And what we don't want to do is go back to those moments. Now we may have no choice. We just don't quite know how this is going to work out. But ultimately, we're going to try and take care of our current commitments. And we're going to also try and ensure that kids and families stay together as much as possible. So that way, in 2 months or in 6 months or in a year from now, we don't have another massive orphan crisis on our hands that we'll have to process and deal with because we care for those kids and our leaders care for those kids. They would have to deal with that crisis as well. And so a couple of different things we wanted to communicate before we get to the tangibles is this: how's Help One Now stateside responding? Like many of you running businesses, you've had to spend so much of your life in the last few weeks just asking the simple question, how are we going to respond? Last night, my wife's business just got shut down for the next 6 weeks. And so some of us are being forced to respond to issues like that. Others are being forced to reimagine what life looks like in this current environment. And so there's a few things that we're doing right now. One's, we've paused all non-priority domestic and international travel for obvious reasons. One, we wanted to keep people safe and we wanted to flatten the curve. Two, we wanted to make sure we weren't the carriers of the virus to the communities that we serve in. And so about 2 weeks ago, I came out with a video where we talked a little bit about that. And since then, the virus has gotten in our countries, but thankfully it's not as bad yet. And we're hoping that's because there's not a lack of data, but we don't want to be the carriers of the crisis. So two, all the Help One Now staff stateside working remotely and just all working from home. Thankfully, most of what we do is on a computer, and we already have a team that's dispersed throughout America. And so this is really not a big deal for us, but we are all working from home. We've basically moved all of our meetings, internal and external, to digital, to Zoom. Thank God for Zoom. Thank God for folks building great technology. Without Zoom, we don't quite know how the world would operate right now. So that's big. We were actually planning on hiring up this year. We didn't hire much last year as a team, but this year we were going to hire up, and we've paused all hiring as a team, just because we obviously don't quite know where this is going to go. And so we're pretty much cutting down all we're prioritizing all workflow with our current team and making sure we can take care of them and our community leaders and the people that we serve. And so we've paused all hiring for the time being. And thankfully, we have an amazing team, and we're able to simplify everything as quick as possible. And we feel really good about the workflow that we have ahead of us in the next few months. And so, and of course, like all of you, we're just constantly evaluating our spending. If we're not spending any funds that are not essential in any category right now. One fear that we have is we don't quite know how long the crisis will last, and we don't know how hard it's going to hit our communities. And so with the cash on hand that we have, we're trying to save as much cash as we can to care for our current commitments and our current folks that we care for, our families, our kids, in places like Kairos Village and Ferrier Village and Musha Ravana. These are folks that we're responsible for 24/7, and we're not sure how things are going to work out in their communities. And so we want to make sure we have enough funds to make sure our leaders don't feel the pressure of caring for those programs, so our leaders can focus all their attention and efforts on caring for the community. It's one of the gifts that we can give to our leaders right now, is to depressurize them as much as possible, because all of our leaders are going to be highly focused on community needs that they're all facing currently right now. So that's kind of some of the simple things that we are doing as a community, helping out to kind of simplify things for the time being until we get more data, until we understand the crisis and how long it may or may not last. And so one thing I will say is we're really not panicking at all. We feel just a real sense of calm. Like many of you, I think we have moments where we kind of like, oh man, what is going to happen, or how bad is this going to be? But when it's all said and done, there's just a real sense of calm and peace and focus. And we get up each and every day. And I've always said this, and I truly believe it. We're just trying to keep up with God. Like, God's going to love people. He's going to serve people. He's going to be doing these things no matter what's taking place. And we're just going to kind of follow along in that and just continue to do what we love to do, what we're called to do, what we know, what we need to do. And we're going to do it to the best of our ability. And so right now, we're kind of taking it day by day and week by week. And then, as we collect more data, we'll kind of figure out a long range planning. My hope and prayer is that obviously sooner rather than later, we will be able to get to understand kind of the long-term ramifications of the coronavirus and how it's going to affect our communities. And so I wanted to talk about 5 anchors that I think are really essential. And then we're going to talk about how we can all make a difference and what we need to do to kind of ensure that our leaders are taken care of. And so here are the 5 anchors that I think every single one of us need to kind of apply to our lives. And so these are the anchors that will hold us through the worst times so we can thrive in the best of times. But I actually think these anchors will help us thrive even right now as we deal with the virus. One is just, we know we need faith, right? This is a moment where faith matters so much. We don't quite know what tomorrow's going to hold, but we have faith that we're going to make it through tomorrow. And so your faith. To hope. We can't get through this without hope. Our leaders can't get through this without hope. No matter how bad things get, we know that there's hope. We've been in crises before. I remember the first time I landed in the Haiti airport and I got into a van and I drove out into the city and I thought, man, there's just no way. This is just crazy. It was hard to even imagine what my sights and senses were happening. And then I just remember having conversations with my Haiti friends, and I remember just the hope. And like, this is 8 weeks after the earthquake and after their whole life has been flipped upside down. And yet they already were thriving on hope. In the midst of uncertainty, it was a hope that was helping to keep them going. And so we're going to need to hang on to hope. Courage is the third anchor. We as people, and Help One Now as a family, I want us to have the deepest courage imaginable. I want us to understand the importance of this when everyone else is living in fear, when everyone else is stockpiling supplies, when everyone else is focused on themselves, that we could be a glimpse of what it looks like to have courage, that we can love well, that we can serve well, that we can try and take care of our local neighbors and our global neighbors. We don't have all the right answers, but when it's all said and done, we're going to live a courageous life as a community of people who just believe so much. And in kind of the vision of Help One Now and in giving and serving locally and globally. And so faith, hope, courage. Courage also is going to require a ton of grace. We're going to have to be graceful. Last Monday, I had a total meltdown, like 20 minutes. My wife was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I can't be home this long." And I just knew things were going to be more long term instead of short term. And yet I was able to recenter myself because I was just trying to realize, like, where are the anchors? And so faith, hope, courage. And so, and I think the last one that's really important is simply generosity, right? This is the moment for us to be more generous. And so, to be fair and to be clear, we understand that every single person is having to reimagine life and economics and work and family. And so, through all of those changes, many of you will have to change the way you give or serve Help One Now. Many of our local neighbors are in need right now, from restaurants to families to all kinds of different local tensions that we're not used to dealing with. That, you know, I know for my wife and I, we care so much for our local community. We want to see Raleigh thrive, and you want to see your local community thrive. One thing I do know is that I want us to be generous. I want people, when they look at the Help One Now family, they just see a group of people that are doing everything in their power to be generous. And so, the more we stay focused on the other, I think the better life that we can live. And I just want to remind all of us, there's going to come a moment when the crisis is over and we're going to look back at the crisis and we're going to say, did we lead and did we deal with it well? Were we proud of our actions? Did we love? Did we have faith? Did we have hope? Did we have courage? Were we generous? And I think that's going to be a moment where we can really be proud of the actions that we took, and we did the best that we could to love the best that we could in those moments. And so I know for me, I'm like many of you, Nicole last night, I heard she can't open her business for the next 6 weeks. And so that's a loss of income for us. And so the first thing this morning is we reimagine what that means for us. And thankfully we're in a good spot and we're not in a desperate spot. I know many of my neighbors are not in the place that I'm in. But if there's one thing we're committed to, is we're still going to be generous. We're still going to give. We're still going to help others, and we're still going to focus on others. And I think that's the best way that we can get through this as well. And so hopefully those anchors will be helpful to all of you. And as we all try to together navigate this uncertain time that we live in. So, okay, what's next? In just a few moments, I'm going to share some tangible ways that we're going to get through this together. These are some big asks that I'm going to have from you. And hopefully when it's all said and done, this will give us just a very clear way of going forward. Sorry, so many of you are texting me right now, so I'm making sure I'm trying to follow text messages from you. So thank you for texting me. I will not call you out. Okay, so if you're a monthly supporter, our ask is that you just stick with us right now. If you can do it, please stick with us. It's the monthly support. And monthly is for those who literally, you give monthly, you sponsor a child, you're committed to some type of long range giving. You talk with Peyton and Lamar and myself. For those who kind of have that predictable giving pattern, if you can stick with us, obviously that would be great. That's actually what we're going to use to secure the baseline needs of our communities. We're going to make sure those funds are taking care of all of the everyday needs that our leaders oversee, and that their current those current needs don't become a crisis that our leaders have to deal with, plus the crisis in the community. And so for those who are giving monthly, if you can, stick with us. Listen, please understand this. We know things are changing rapidly, and that may change for you. There's all grace here. You may have clarity as kindness in this situation. So if things do need to change, please just let us know. And we are long-term family members. We're going to walk this together. And even if some of our folks do have to pause their giving, we totally understand that. But if you can, stick with us, and that will stabilize this entire thing. One is we're going to need your help to raise extra money above and beyond funds that we can use to help our leaders care for the communities that are going to be in need. It's basically the COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund. We just sent about $4,500 out to Peru Willie and Mercedes needed to help about 100 family members in their community. And so what we're seeing, it takes about $100 to help one family for a month. And we're just going to try and raise $150,000 to kind of care for those families around the world. We want to get those funds to our leaders sooner rather than later. So Uganda and Haiti have just closed borders. And what we know that means is it's just prices are going to skyrocket in every scenario, and jobs are going to close down, and people are going to be in need. And so we want to definitely help our leaders quickly do that. And there's a link that you can go to where you can respond. Thirdly, and this is so essential, every single one of us, we have influence. This is so critical. For many of us, we're going to be told to focus on our local communities, which is totally understandable on many levels. But we're going to have to be the voice that also helps people understand the world has needs, and we're going to have to respond to those needs. And it's a privilege to be able to do that. And so, if you have connections, family, friends, others who can get involved to help us raise this first $150,000, hopefully it'll be the last $150,000, and then we can get through this and go back to development work. But we just don't know. But ultimately, everyone has influence. And so we're going to ask you to help us raise this first $150,000. And that will be funds that our leaders can basically request, and we can send them immediately so they can begin to help their communities. Kind of what we know is when the funds are donated, they'll be flipped around about 48 hours into the hands of our leaders, making an impact in their community. So thankfully, just the way Help One Now operates, we can get those funds in the hands of our leaders really, really quickly. And so that will be one of the biggest things we do. If you're someone who is, has influence on a large platform level, we may need you to activate your community to help us raise emergency funds for our communities around the world. And so if you're one of those folks, please let us know. We'd love to create a campaign. We're trying to keep this simple and actionable. We understand there's so many different needs and desires going on around the world. So we want to keep this as simple as we can. And so every $100 supports a family for a month, $25 supports a family for a week. So that way it's a simple messaging. Everyone can do what they can to make a difference in the lives for 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 families and whatnot. And so I think that is basically what we're up to now. This will change pretty rapidly, we think. And so we may have more webinars in the future that you can jump on and you can watch. We'll send those out via email. But we're going to do everything in our power to keep our Help One Now family updated, so you all know kind of what is happening in our communities. And so right now, we're just going to take a moment to have a little Q&A, and then we will go from there. So Q&A, let me know if I have a question that anyone needs answered.
Well, Allison has asked if we'll be making a post with a link to donate that they can share. And yes, absolutely. I think there may be some posts out there already, but we will get you guys everything you need to share for sure. And
in case you don't see it, it's helponenow.org/COVID-19 /. So, but yeah, to be in our main page.
We're sharing it.
Yeah. Okay. It's going in there. Yes. Any other questions? Best mailing address. We got that. All right, y'all. Has this webinar been helpful? If it's been helpful, just please type in a yes. If it hasn't been helpful, you can leave now again. No, I'm kidding. But we just want to make sure this is helpful for y'all. Anna, unbelievable. Anna, you owe me 10 push-ups still. All right, y'all, we love you so much. We're so thankful for you. Again, one thing I will say, if you have any further ideas, any further thoughts, please let us know. There has never been a moment in the history of Help One Now where our Help One Now family has not helped us create progress around the world. Many of the things that we do today literally is because of your ideas that you've had on a trip around the world or at some event and whatnot. One thing I will say, maybe we didn't say this, but we have canceled all events. So we're not quite for sure we did have to cancel multiple international trips, multiple local events, multiple fundraising events, galas and all those types of things. So one thing you can be praying for us is that is kind of our revenue stream and kind of how we fund the org every year. And so we're trying to reimagine a little bit how to do that. Obviously, we've cut our budget down to a point where we know we can survive right now and take care of our leaders' key needs and our stateside key needs. But if you do have other ideas, please let us know, especially the second half of the year as we try to get back out, hopefully in public spaces to take the Help One Now story out and about to where we always take it. So love you guys. Thank you so much. And we will talk to you soon.